Welcome back to another episode of ROC Boys football. The fellas are heading to the Big Ten, the conference we know best as Illinois goes on the road to Lincoln, Nebraska. Anytime you play Lincoln, it is going to be tough. The fellas were out there last year for the Michigan game. That place is electric. Nebraska has some of the best fans in the country. But in the Big Ten West, you can't really trust many teams. And I feel crazy saying this, but the team that you seem like the only team you can trust in the Big Ten West right now is the Illinois Fighting Illini. This is going to be a good game. I'm excited for it. But before we get into it again, just want to say thank you guys for the support you guys have shown the channel. The Illini fans were at Dill's throats a couple weeks ago. Dill's found some new respect for Illinois. And the Nebraska fans, you guys, the program hasn't been great the last couple of years, but those fans just keep showing up, and we do appreciate all the support both of the teams have shown to us. So if you like the content, again, consider subscribing to the channel. Dill, I'm going to kick it off to you. What are your early takes here in the Big Ten West Showdown?
I mean, you got to think Illinois is going to keep this train rolling along pretty good. They've just been playing really solid football, and I think if you watch their offense, it's getting a little bit more creative. They're doing a little more than just trying to pound you out and win a game 10-7. And I think if they can do that, they can be dangerous because they got that wideout or converted quarterback who's now playing wideout.
Isaiah Williams is a dog.
And obviously Chase Brown might be a top, 5 running back in the Big Ten. I don't know. He's right up there with the guys from Michigan and Ohio State, I think.
Yeah, where I start on this game is Illinois and their defense. I mean, Ryan Walters, what he's done with this program, and Illinois fans, enjoy it while it's here because he's going to be a head coach somewhere very, very soon. What he's done with this program, and again, it's not insane amount of talent. Like, I like the personnel that Illinois has on defense, but how well this team is coached and how many negative plays, how many turnovers they force, it is extremely impressive. And a Nebraska team that you look at what Nebraska's doing, they do not take care of the football very well, averaging 2 turnovers per game. You look at what Illinois does extremely well. They take the ball away from opposing teams 2.5 times per game. I would be very surprised if Nebraska doesn't have 3+ turnovers. That's kind of where I start on this game is Illinois is going to get after Casey Thompson with a very, very good defensive line versus the Nebraska offense line. It's just been miserable.
Yeah,
and I think Casey Thompson is going to be thrown off his back foot a lot, and those guys on the back end for Illinois are absolute ball hawks. I see a lot of turnovers, and I think Illinois really does kind of dominate the trenches here, especially on the defense side of the ball.
Yeah, because Nebraska, I mean, they've shown no ability to block, and even bad defensive lines tear up Nebraska. Like their tackle play is just, it might be as bad as exists in the Power 5, and it might be at the bottom end of the country as a whole because they really, God, that play's just really struggled. And as you mentioned, this is not a secondary you want to be throwing the ball up to and giving chances to take it away because they got pros at both levels, the safety and the cornerback.
I think this Illinois secondary, we talked about Penn State the other day, and Georgia has a very good secondary. You look at some of the guys they have on the back end. Devin Witherspoon, legit stud. Kendall Smith has 4 interceptions on the year. Jatavius Martin, very, very long. I'm probably leaving some guys out. Sidney Brown kind of playing that hybrid safety linebacker spot. I mean, they're just so loaded on the back end. And then you look at guys like Jazar Newton, Keith Randolph Jr. up front. This Illinois team, from the front 7 to the back 4, are very, very good. They turn the ball over. I don't see – Nebraska's found some explosive plays. What Illinois is really, really good at is not giving up those explosive plays. And if they force Nebraska to go 10, 12 plays and try to score a touchdown, I think it's going to be tough sledding in Lincoln for the quarterback.
And Nebraska just can't do that because they give up too many sacks. And if you give up like a sack or 2 a possession, you need to have 40-yard plays to guys like Trey Palmer. Those tight ends have been effective for Nebraska too at creating things up the seam. But yeah, that's the problem is if Illinois can keep it, play how they've been playing, which has made teams be really patient and just grind them out. I think Nebraska's just not cut out for that. So yeah, I think the secondary is a little too good for them in preventing big plays for Nebraska to move the ball like in the only way that I see them being able to.
And that plays a role because I do think, I mean, you mentioned it. Trey Palmer's been their offense through the year. I mean, he has 781 yards. He's been the guy they go to. The next guy is Marcus Washington with under 300 yards. They don't have a ton of balance. Trey Palmer's going to see a lot of safety help. If you really can control Trey Palmer, the one knock on this Nebraska team is they don't really have as talented as Marcus Washington is and how talented he was coming from Texas and out of high school, he hasn't been very reliable. He's had a few drops. I have some question marks about how consistently this Nebraska team can move the football down the field. And again, I think turnovers play a role. I want to flip the script and talk about this Illinois offense that I quite frankly think is just a little underrated. Again, you're kind of turning on Tommy DeVito, starting to see why he's not going to wow you with his arm. He doesn't have a ton of arm talent. But what Illinois asks him to do, he does, and he does at a high level. He's throwing for 10 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions with a 70% completion percentage. This Illinois team is not flashy, but it's a pretty solid offense.
Yeah, but I think they're like breaking out a little bit. I think the first few weeks, and I was getting on them because everything was underneath. I never saw any real production out of the passing game that went much over 15 yards, and even that was a longer play. But I think you watched that Minnesota game. They were finding more creative ways to get guys open downfield, whether that was running Brown out of the backfield on wheels and other sort of misdirection plays. And that's what this Illinois team probably has to do with a guy like DeVito, because I don't think he's going to sit in the pocket and rip you apart. But if you can use the fact that the run game is dominant and Nebraska can't stop the run because those linebackers are just not playing at a particularly high level right now, I think they can put them on their heels and challenge them with some misdirection and just some more creativity that you're starting to see out of Illinois.
That has been the most disappointing thing for Nebraska is those guys, Nick Henrich, Luke Reimer, they came in as like preseason All-Americans. The stats, the numbers they put up last year were extremely impressive. I don't think neither of them have been that impressive. Like, they've missed some tackles in open space. I think Chase Brown, again, was one of the best backs in the country, especially at making people miss at the second level. He's got very, very good vision. Another thing I want to note is the emergence of like a lot of the discussion, and I was high on this Illinois team, and I was high on it because of Chase Brown and because of Isaiah Williams. One of the reasons this offense is kind of breaking out of its shells, guys like Pat Bryant, Brian Hightower have been bigger body guys that can move the chains. Isaiah Williams wouldn't say he's a gadget wide receiver, but he's a guy that you kind of want to get on end arounds, want to get on quick hitters, some screens. Pat Bryant and Brian Hightower are big body guys who get open and they make combat catches to move the chains. And that's been something that this offense has lacked. Now, I mean, you have Chase Brown and you have 3 very good wide receivers. This offense is kind of finding its form. And again, one thing I want to note, 2 things. They're coming off a bye week. Chase Brown, the amount of volume Chase Brown has handled, for a guy who's not that big, probably 200 pounds top. So he's a little muscle hamster, but he's not that big of a dude. He's getting a bye week, kind of getting those legs fresh again. And you also have Josh McCray, who might be coming back from the injury he suffered week 1, who you could tell that they're not in love with Reggie Love. Like, Chase Brown has 192 carries. Reggie Love only has 31. Like, Josh McCray is going to be able to come in and spell Chase Brown. And again, Chase Brown's got to get his touches. But having a guy like Josh McCray come in and take 5, 8, 10 carries from Chase Brown and letting him stay fresh, I think is going to be another story to watch.
Yeah, and he'll beat a defense up. I mean, he's a big, physical running back who I don't think this Nebraska team is going to want to tackle, especially at this point in the season. And I don't even mean to beat down on Nebraska. Like, obviously, the season's not gone great. I do think Mickey Joseph is – I mean, they're playing a little tougher at least. Like, they're starting to win the games they should win, the Rutgers-type games, and not let them slip away like they were doing. So I do like what Mickey Joseph is kind of bringing around to this Nebraska team. I just think that it's too far gone for them to really challenge an Illinois team that's really clicking on all cylinders and frankly as much, if not more, talent, I think, on the field right now as Nebraska.
Yeah, there's 2 things that have really disappointed me with Nebraska. One, on defense, is I just don't think they're as physical in the trenches as you kind of thought they were going to be. Like, even a team like Northwestern kind of pushed them around a little bit. And then on offense, aside from just not really being able to pass protect, like, this is some of the worst. Again, I don't mean to just like kick Nebraska while they're down, but some of this tackle play is next level bad. I mean, you have Rutgers guys who are not necessarily world beaters off the edge, are kind of smoking these Nebraska tackles. Now, the one thing I really am concerned is they don't really have an identity on offense. Like, there's sometimes they just want to run the ball with Anthony Grant, who's a very, very talented running back. And then some days they want to like go air raid, spread them out. Their offense has been hit a big play to Trey Palmer. That's kind of what it's been. They don't have like a consistent identity. Like, we're going to try to run the ball, or we're going to try to spread you out and make you cover around the field. That's probably the biggest hole I see in this team. And it's just, when you look at these 2 teams, and we're going to get into the pick right now, Illinois has an identity. They play great defense. They run the ball. Nebraska really struggled, inconsistent. They turn the ball over and don't really have an identity. Now, the question is, Dale, are you laying a full touchdown, 7.5 points with the Illini going on the road to Lincoln?
Yeah, I frankly would probably I'd be more comfortable with that than doing the other side. Of course, if you were like truly going to be betting it, I think you'd want it under the touchdown just because taking 7.5, it just is not a great line, especially for a team that it's almost like I still have in my head, I'm waiting for Nebraska to emerge because I did think they were going to be so good. I do think there's still some talent, and you just like those tackles play even remotely good football. You just could look like quite a bit different team. So I'm not wildly in love with taking Illinois, although that would be my pick if I had to make one. But
yeah, I'm kind of with you. You look at this Illinois offense, and I'm not saying it's bad, but it's not an Ohio State offense, and that's just not how they're built. If you look at this team, they're built to win those games, like kind of how Minnesota was winning games last year, like kind of smother you on defense and play field position and take points when they can get them. I don't see them putting much over like 30 on this Nebraska team, even though that defense isn't great. As you don't feel great about them covering a full touchdown. I'm very confident Illinois wins this football game. Again, Nebraska might be the more talented team, but in terms of like the eyeball test, which team you trust, it has to be the Fighting Illini. This has kind of been my team that we've loved since the summer. It's a fun team to watch. What Brett Bielema is doing is exciting. I'd be laying with the 7.5 points with the Illini as well. They've been 5-2 against the spread. They're a very, very successful team that, quite frankly, Vegas has just been underrating all year. So give me the Illini to win by a touchdown against Nebraska. And again, this one is going to be good. Again, if you do like the content, you like talking Big Ten ball, consider subscribing to the channel. Again, we do appreciate you guys, especially the Illini fans, giving us some heat. But that's what football's about. We love that. And we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.